Awesome, we just made a sale. Oh, but it's the last one. I really don't like making these. Do you struggle with some of the processes that you have in your shop when you're making things to sell or give away, or just the things that you make in your shop? I'm going to give you 4 tips to help you with that today. So let's get started. First, I'm going to show you what we're going to make today. So I make these carriers, and all they are is a piece of HDPE plastic, and I cut them to shape and I put handles on them, and they hold the silicone molds that I make. Well, I love making silicone molds, but these are not my favorite thing to make. So I'm going to take you along the journey of making a batch of these, and then when I get to something I can improve on or I have improved on, then I'll tell you what it is, and then we'll get through this, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have a better understanding on how to make it better. So let's go. I want to use a new bit that I got. It's from SPE Tools, Speed Tools. It's a 1/4 inch, and it's supposed to be for this kind of stuff. I'll have a link to this below if you want to go check it out. But this is the memory stick that this has the cut files on, and I can't remember if I used a 1/4 inch bit, 1/8 inch bit, or whatever. So I already went and looked, and I can't find the original files. I still have these cut files, but as you'll see in a minute, you have to save your project, and I don't guess I did that, or I did it on a different computer or something. So I need to go and redo these real quick, and I'll show you how I do that. Let's dive into this real quick. Shouldn't take that long. All right, we're on the original CNC file for the forms that I made for the actual silicone mold. So this line right here is going to be the actual outside of the silicone mold. So I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to a brand new window. Say create a new file. I'm going to speed this part up a little bit because it's boring, quite frankly. If I'm bored doing it, then you're going to be bored of me explaining it. But the thing is, I'm going to make better is those rectangles that are on the side right there. I'm going to make the handles out of that. I'm going to keep the bit with this and this memory stick that I saved this to. I'm going to keep them with the carriers, so I know where everything's at the same time. So let's get out to the shop. I need to get this machine kicked off, make sure there's water in it. This is water cooled. I haven't used it in a while since the last time I did one of these, I think. Get the new bit put in, get it ready to go. So when I start this, I'll have the dust collection on. It works very, very well on this. So let me get it done. So tip number 1 is to make a conscious effort about being organized. When I first started doing this, I didn't know I was going to be selling that stuff. So now anytime I prototype, I know there's a possibility I can sell things. So I go ahead and be organized. I'm going to keep all this stuff together so next time I can just go. So I come over here and I have a blanket out. These don't really need to be pretty. I don't want to scratch them on purpose. So I put the blanket out, and this is how we just cut it. So I'm going to flip it over and you'll be able to see the tabs. So as you can see, here's all our tabs that are holding that held all these down. Otherwise, either you're going to tape them down on the CNC. I don't have a vacuum table, so this is the best way I found. Just use tabs and bolt them down. So all we got to do is, I got a multi-tool here. I love it. We'll put my hearing protection on and then get a few of these off. We are going to get 2 more pieces and another piece for straps out of this piece. So now put this back over by the CNC machine and we'll use it here in a second. At this point, you can get a flush cut bit, but I have a 1/8 inch, I think, round over bit in there with the bearings. So that should go above that and flatten that off and round it over at the same time. So I'll do one without the dust collection on, and we'll see how it goes. So there we go. All of our tabs are off. It's all rounded over. There's no sharp edges. I am pretty satisfied with this. So I'll get the rest of these cut out, and I'll show you the smaller piece that's left over, cutting that out. Tip number 2 is going to be buy the right equipment. This router table I'm using right here, I didn't have this at the beginning. I just had a small benchtop router table, and I also had another router that we clamped to the table. And me and my daughter would do this, and I sat there and looked one day, and I'm like, if somebody gets hurt, it's our own fault, so we can't do this anymore. So the tip is get the right tool for the right job. We've done probably 100 of these now, and I feel so much better about doing it just because I spent the money on that router table. What I need now is to get a hole exactly center and the same distance away from this wing right here. And I made this jig to do that. And I think something damaged it, so it's not fitting right, but you set it in there flush, you pull this over like that, and then you can drill it. But this hole's kind of wonky, and I made this jig like pretty fast, and I didn't take a lot of time to do it, so I need to come up with something else, because if you can see here, see how that one's not center? And then when you put your straps on, and then it's not gonna sit right, and it's just not right, and we can do better. So I figured this is as good a time as any to make it better. So let's go in. I think I'm gonna 3D print something to go on here and guide this drill. So let's go in there. Tip number 3 is take a little time to make a little time. And what I mean by that is it's only taken me about 10 to 20 minutes to design this thing, and I'm not very good at 3D printing, and then it's going to take it somewhere around 30 minutes to print it. So I'm in it 40-50 minutes, and it costs 35 cents right there, you can see, so that it can help me out tremendously when I go to the shop. It's kind of like when you're working on your house and the tools are all over the floor, but you could have just put a table in. You could have took 5 minutes to make up a makeshift table, so you didn't have to bend down all day to get it. This is kind of the same thing. Take a few minutes and make something that's going to make your life easier. And not everybody has a 3D printer, but there's services out there. You could have made it out of wood, metal, plastic, whatever. And now this is going to make my life so much easier. Nice. Before I go drilling 100 of these, I'm going to go ahead, and these are the screws we use. I think they're 10 by 3/4, self-tapping, but I want to make sure that we're going deep enough and everything's fine. So perfect. We'll be able to fit a strap in there. Good to go. So here we go. Let's make 100 of these. I do have the screws here, and I know I don't have enough, so I'm just going to put them in until I'm out of screws. 10 by 3/4 inch. So let's put some screws in these. I'm sure there was people asking whenever I was making this jig to drill with. Why don't you just use a drill press? 1, that's a weird shape, and 2, my drill press has a jig on it all the time for the straps. And let me show you that. I utilize this drill press to drill the holes in the strap. So here's an existing strap. So what I do is this thing just lives here all the time, and this is how I check it. I get one I've already done, and I put it in there, run it down. It goes right through. So that tells me we're good to go for this one, and that's centered. Sometimes that's hard for me. And then we'll go ahead and let's drill this. Put one in there. It goes up in there just like that. I've already chamfered these edges. I rounded them over with the router when we were doing the rest of them. That's all I'm going to do with that. And it's ready to go to the table saw. We'll just pretend I showed you doing this to all of them. They're done. Okay? This is always the most unenjoyable part of this, and I think I have it figured out now. So what I'm going to do is this is the existing one, and this is going to give me my distance. It's pretty close. I like it. And also, if you can see here on this gripper, that's a sacrificial thing. So I did it with that blade. So I can just get this against the fence. I can get this against the fence and get the blade to line up with that hole. It's going to give me my depth and everything else. So just put that there. And there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I do wear a face shield. I actually wear a helmet. Let me show you. 90% of the time I use the table saw, I just go ahead and put this on. It has fresh air, has face protection, so I just go ahead and do that, and I'm going to do it on here. I'll take this microphone and stuff off, get this on, and I'll go ahead and cut this stuff off. This is the most uncomfortable part of this whole building process, and hopefully I can just make it a little bit better every time, so I'm not scared of it. Here we go. Let's go. Now that worked out pretty well. We have 42 straps that made it, and we have 20 carriers, so we have enough to, and with one left over. There was a couple of them that didn't make it. This one had a chip out of it. There was just some things I didn't like about them, but 42, so it means we have enough. And I have one thing left to do while we're in the shop, and I'll show you real quick. I got a jig right here. It doesn't look like much, but I think it's pretty helpful. Here's a super sophisticated jig right here, and you can see it's bolted, it's screwed to the table, and there's just a screw sticking up. Well, this amount right here is the exact amount that I need to put a bend on this, so when you carry it, when it's on the carrier, it all works out right. So just let me demonstrate real quick. You just put that over that screw, and then I hold it there, bend it there. And I'll do the same thing. And so now, actually looks like a handle now, and it's gonna make sense here in a second. So let's get all of these bent. While I was bending these with my fingers, I was thinking about better ways to bend them, and I also thought of a better way to cut these out with the CNC, which brings me to my next point. Number 4 is going to be right after the first 3. I'm going to go over it. Number 1 was make a conscious effort to be organized. When I first started making this stuff, I was just prototyping and making some things. I didn't know I was going to sell it, so I wasn't as organized. So now, when I make something, I save the cut files. I have the tools that go with it. With the thumb drives, they're going to be in the spot that they go. When these get low, I'm just going to go over there, grab the thumb drive and the bit, and go over there and make them. And then the number 2 is have the right tool for the right job. And that's kind of like an old adage or whatever, but that router table makes us feel so much better when we're using it. It's heavy duty. It has the right equipment on it. It has a nice lift on it. There's a nice router in there. Everything is how it's supposed to be. Now, if we do something wrong, now that's on us. But having bad equipment is just a recipe for disaster. So I always suggest getting the right tool for the right job. Number 3, take time to make time. We just took like 40 minutes to make that little jig, to make the holes in these in the right spot and not waste any material. And it took me 30 cents to do it. So now I could make a whole batch of those, and just every time I make 20 of these, take it, use it, and then throw it away and use another one. They only cost 30 cents a piece. Or I could just take it a step further and 3D print it to where I could glue a washer in there to where it's not going to wallow out. So take time to make time. Even if you take a whole day to make your process better from now on, then I would say that's time well spent. Number 4 is never stop trying to improve. Even with that 3D printed thing we just talked about, I'm already thinking of ways that I can make it better and last longer and be more efficient. The table saw, cutting these on the table saw is at the very least scary to me. So while I was doing that, I was thinking about the width of the table saw is like an 1/8 inch. How come I can't get an 1/8 inch CNC router bit to cut out those? So the next time I try this, I'm going to go ahead and do it on the CNC. There's plenty of things. As soon as you think you're done, then you're not going to advance anymore. We do a show where when I first started doing it, I could do maybe 2 projects a show, and then now it's turned into 4 because we always work on our process and how to get better. I do make these silicone molds, and if you're wondering why or how or why I started, the different kinds that I make, there's going to be a video right here. Go over there and check that out. It just goes through the history of why I make these, what kind I make, and what you can use them for. So go over here, check out this video, and I'll see you over there. So see you later.